Good evening. I thought I'd offer a few thoughts for your consideration while we're being quarantined here again. In Mark chapter 12, verse 28 through 34, Jesus is asked the question, what is the greatest commandment? He's asked this many times, and usually his answer is much like this one, where he quotes Moses in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one, and you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. And he says the second commandment is like it, Leviticus 19, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Well, on the night before his arrest, it's recorded in John chapter 13, verse 34, he made a change in that command, the second command. And he said it's a new command. They were to love one another as he had loved them. It's no longer to be love your neighbor as yourself, but love the way he had loved. So the question surfaces, how did Jesus love? And what was it like? How did he love his followers then and now? How does it apply to us? So here are a few thoughts on the question, how did Jesus love his followers? The first one I thought of is in Scripture in Philippians chapter 2, verse 4 through 8. He died to himself before he ever became a man. He was God over all, worshipped by all of the hosts of heaven, and he laid that aside to become a man forever. That's the first thing that occurred to me. Even before the creation, he had died to himself. The second one I came up with, in 1 John 3:16, it says that he laid his life down for us. That sounds similar to the other one. However, it is somewhat different. In John chapter 15, Jesus says, greater love has no man than this, than he laid his life down for his friends. And we know he did that very thing. And he asks the same of us. At baptism, we kill the old person. We take up the new, and becoming like him, we continue to kill the old man or the old nature. And he just won't stay down most of the time. We give up what our life would have been for a new and different life in the kingdom. The third way that he loved his friends and his followers is, he says in John chapter 15, verse 15, I call you friends, no longer servants with a master. Have all things I have heard from my Father, I have made known to you, he says. So there was no secrets, no classified information. We got what Jesus got as far as his communication with the Father. Keep in mind now, when Scripture speaks of a friend, it's usually a covenant of close friendship. It's like the friend who sticks closer than a brother. There's commitment, there's sacrifice to the partner or for the benefit of the partner. It's much deeper than our Western idea of friendship. Number 4, Matthew chapter 20, verse 28, he turns the roles around. He says, he did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for many. In John chapter 13, the first part of it, Jesus gives an example of how we humbly serve each other. And even the greatest among us can wash feet. Jesus himself showed by example what he was talking about when he says to serve each other. Let me read you a passage from Luke chapter 22, verse 27 through 30. He's asking a question. For who is greater, he who sits at the table or he who serves? Is it not he who sits at the table? Yet I am among you as one who serves. But you are those who have continued with me in my trials, and I bestow upon you a kingdom, just as my Father bestowed one upon me, that you may eat and drink at my table, and sit on thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel, for the people of God. So who is greater, he who sits at the table or he who serves at the table? We don't have any doubt about that, do we? When we go to eat at a restaurant, we know the roles we play. We know who the server is supposed to be and who the patron is supposed to be. So it's the same in Jesus' time. In Philippians chapter 2 again, we quoted or read it first early on. He emptied himself of his privileges and took the form of a servant, and he came in the likeness of men. Another passage I want to read to you is in Matthew chapter 9, verse 35 and 6. And Jesus went all about the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and preaching the gospel of the kingdom, and healing every sickness and every disease among the people. But when he saw the multitudes, he was moved with compassion for them, because they were weary and scattered like sheep having no shepherd. He just loved people. And he sees people as being scattered and weary. Let me read you a couple of passages here. One in Mark chapter 7, 24 to 30. This is a story of the Canaanite woman and her little young daughter that had a demon, you remember. And Jesus and his disciples they're over on the coast of the Mediterranean. Over there, Tyre and Sidon. They're not even in Palestine. They're trying to get away and on a retreat and relax and rest. And so, listen to what happens. And from there he arose and went to the region of Tyre and Sidon, and he entered a house and wanted no one to know it, but he could not be hidden. For a woman whose young daughter had an unclean spirit heard about him, and she came and fell at his feet. The woman was a Greek, a Syrophoenician by birth, and she kept asking him to cast the demon out of her daughter. But Jesus said to her, "Let the children be filled first, for it is not good to take the children's bread and throw it to the little dogs." And she answered and said to him, "Yes, Lord, but even the little dogs under the table eat from the children's crumbs." Then he said to her, "For this saying, go your way, the demon has gone out of your daughter." And when she had come to her house, she found the demon gone out and her daughter lying on the bed. So I just wanted to show you, even when he is tired and exhausted, he still responds to the scattered and the weary sheep, the encounters. In Mark chapter 6, the chapter before where we were, verses 30 through 34, find a place here. Then the apostles gathered to Jesus. They'd just been sent out on mission, okay? And he sent, I think it was 12, but he sent them out 2 by 2, you remember? And they just come back, and they're gathered around to him, and they were telling him all the things that they had done and what they had taught. In verse 31, he says to them, "Come aside by yourselves to a deserted place and rest a while." For there were many coming and going, and they didn't even have time to eat. So they departed to a deserted place in the boat by themselves. And the multitude saw them departing, and many knew him and ran there on foot from all the cities. And they arrived before them and came together to him. And Jesus, when he came out, he saw the great multitude and was moved with compassion for them, because they were like sheep not having a shepherd. So he began to teach them many things. Okay, and this is the account of when he fed the 5,000, because they're in that deserted place and there's no place close by to get food, and the disciples are concerned about it, and he says, "Will you feed them?" But anyway, he's constantly concerned about those who are struggling. Okay, he is a good shepherd. In John chapter 17, you remember where he prays for those who believe in him and who are following him. He knows he's about to leave. He tells the Father, he says, "I kept them in your name, those you gave me, and none of them were lost except the son of perdition, that the scripture might be fulfilled. I have given them your word, and the world has hated them because they are not of this world. Don't take them out of the world," he asked, "but keep them from the evil one." And the last one that I would like for you to think about a little bit is in John 15, verse 9 and 10. "As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you," he says. "Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love." Back in John chapter 12, he makes this statement, "For I have not spoken on my own authority, but the Father who sent me gave me a command, what I should say and what to speak." So the teachings he has given to us come directly from our Father. So I'd like to backtrack a little bit here and say, now, so what? How do we make applications of some of these things that we've read about and talked about some? The first one is, you remember, he died to himself. He set all of that aside. And we need to follow his lead. We must adjust our notions of who we are and what we deserve. We can't love each other if we each are our own most important person. The second one, he laid down his previous existence for us. And that one, sometimes I think it doesn't ever sink in on us that he was changed forever. So the question I'd like to ask you, are you willing to go there for each other? Are you willing to be changed forever from what you would be? Even in Scripture, Jesus is referred to after his resurrection as the man Christ. It follows him constantly. In 1 Timothy 2:5 and Romans 5:15, Acts 13:38, there are 3 examples, and there's 3 or 4 more that I've found where he is referred to as man. He is forever man. He calls us friends or covenant partners. That speaks, as you know, of commitment and support, help and loyalty, encouragement. We must be there for each other and the kingdom. We are not a loosely connected group like the Rotary Club or the Quilters Guild. We are the family of God, closely intertwined with each other, supposed to be. Number 4, we come to the kingdom to serve and not to be served. Even Christ is the server at his table in his kingdom. That'll blow your mind a little bit. The king waiting tables. That just does not add up to our concept, does it? Number 5, you be sensitive to the needs of people. And even today, the people are still weary and scattered like sheep that don't have a shepherd. So as you encounter those people, you try to lead them to the Good Shepherd. Number 6 was he kept them in the name, in the Lord's name. You work to keep folks in His name. You give them His word. You encourage them when the world hates them, and you pray that the Lord keep them from the evil one. And number 7, and abide in Jesus' love by keeping His commandments. They come directly from the Father, and they keep us in their love. Remember, Jesus said that He passed on to us all that He received from the Father, so we can be confident of how to abide in His love. And next time, I think maybe we can talk some about specific commandments that He gave us, and we'll lay those alongside our lives and see how we measure up, I guess. Maybe this is a good time to do that when there's not somebody sitting right beside you that knows how you do on those commandments. God bless you as you study this week. Thank you.